Welcome to another edition of Dan Frequently Asked Questions. In this edition, we are going to be addressing diving with PTSD as a treatment and whether or not it's safe to do so. Keep watching. We got a question from a group of individuals that actually routinely allow individuals with post-traumatic stress disorder to dive in order to process and work through some of their traumatic memories. And in particular, there was a question about a case who was on serotonin selective reuptake inhibitors, as well as anti-epilepsy type of medication, as well as anti-acid reflux medication, etc., etc. So this is a very specific and detailed question, and I'd rather like to deal with it on a slightly broader basis. Generally speaking, we discourage diving with psychoactive medication. The reason being that it can dull the senses and it may affect your judgment and ability to dive safely if you are impaired as a result of the medication. In this particular situation, there is the additional concern of the post-traumatic stress. So one has the medication question and one has the psychiatric or psychological question and whether those are compatible with diving. I would like to liken this to handicapped scuba diving. Now, with handicapped scuba diving, we're dealing with typically individuals who've had amputations to arms, legs, or spinal cord injuries, and the Handicapped Scuba Diving Association has come up with guidelines as to how to dive safely. And in simple terms, it usually involves 3 divers, in other words, the affected diver diving with 2 completely able-bodied support divers, and therefore not needing to be the safety buddy diver for their partner. In other words, they are the diver getting support. They are not in need of providing support. And under those conditions, certain physical disabilities may be compatible with diving under very carefully controlled conditions. I would venture to say that the same is true for this situation. PTSD as such may have different triggers that may be set off by the diving experience or interaction with individuals during the simple course of a dive training event. So one has to consider that. And then, of course, the medication and whether or not that would run the risk of either causing sedation to the point of being incapacitating or running the risk even of seizure-like activity. Now, medication simply as antacids, like omeprazole that suppresses the proton pump that produces acid in the stomach, that on its own is not an issue. So again, one needs to look not only at the medication, one needs to look at the big picture. What is the bottom line? One needs to have a psychiatrist or psychologist weigh in on whether or not it's appropriate for the person to be exposed to the diving environment, firstly. A diving physician determining whether or not it's compatible with diving, and thirdly, the instructor making the determination during training whether the person has the psychomotor skills and mental resilience to undergo the relative rigors of diving. Because remember, when you're diving, each one of your 5 senses is completely deranged. Vision changes, smell changes, taste changes, hearing changes, and touch changes. So there are a number of adjustments that are necessary to cope in the underwater environment. If one already has tremendous psychological loading as a result of a traumatic event, it may just make it difficult for a person to make those adjustments. But it needs to be individualized, and I would not want to say a blanket no. It may be extremely therapeutic, and for that, I would suggest you get the proper counsel. Thank you for the question, and until next time, safe diving.